I want to, because you know I love teachers. I'm a former teacher, and we have more and more teachers writing in, which just makes me so happy. A teacher says, I have a student who is on a modified school schedule. He comes to school for math and ELA and 2 hours pullout. He is aggressive towards teachers on some days just because. I know that we need to understand what happens before the behavior, and usually it just happens as he wants to hold the teacher's hand. In my room, he can be completing work and fixates on an object, and he knows that if he finishes work, then he can have it. In PE, he just wants to run into children, pull girls' hair, hit teachers, pull their badges. We use social stories, we use if, then. I am not sure what else to do in order to help this student. And I just have to say, I love you so much because a teacher who is looking at that and not just saying, you know, what's wrong with this child, instead saying, how can I help this student? You are the answer to so many questions and problems.
Honestly.
And I'm so glad that you wrote in and asked this question, because we didn't say before, I didn't even do the opening for the Ask Dr. Doreen.
That's okay.
But we're welcoming Dr.
Thank you very
Granpeesheh,
much.
and she is an expert in this field. I believe the preeminent expert in this field. She's going to be answering your question and other people's questions. I do want to put the disclaimer that she's not able to give individual specific advice in this format, right?
We do our best.
But absolutely, and I'm so glad that you're in her capable hands. So, Dr. Granpeesheh, thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure, Shannon. Let's start all over again.
It's all weird
It's
today.
a pleasure, and yeah, I agree with you that this is an exceptional teacher. That you are an exceptional teacher. Thank you very much for caring so much. And this is what makes all the difference in the lives of our kids, as teachers who are truly just trying to understand, and that is fantastic. So let's just talk about that for a little bit. In ABA, we're not trying to just understand what happens before a behavior. We're also trying to understand what in the past has happened right after the behavior, because that is possibly the reason that some sort of connection has happened. So there's usually a relationship with what happens before, the antecedent, but only because of what happens after, the consequence. The consequence is where it's all at, because if the consequence is in some way rewarding, then the antecedent becomes associated as a signal. So in other words, it's like, let's say every time I do X behavior, I will get a reward. And it's not so much that what just happened before or after, it's the fact that that reward then becomes paired with something right before the behavior. So now, in this case, you're looking at why, you're trying to figure out why this child is aggressive towards teachers. And you've listed a bunch of stuff. I'm glad you did that, because the first thing it points out is that a challenging behavior, like let's say tantruming or hitting or whatever it is, can look the same. It can have the same topography, but it may have multiple different reasons, different functions. It doesn't always have to be the same reason. And in this particular case, you're thinking, okay, it usually happens as he wants to hold the teacher's hand. In my room, he can be completing work and fixates on an object, and he knows that if he finishes work, then he can have it. So in other words, I think what you're trying to say is that he wants the object and has a hard time waiting to get the object before he finishes. That's a very simple process that you can teach him. What is the function? The function is he wants access to a tangible. He wants access to this reinforcer, and he's having a hard time waiting. Okay, so what you do is you actually give him a reinforcer as soon as you hold his hand, and you start to shape the behavior. You start to increase the duration of time gradually. It's as if you have a food item in front of someone and they want to grab it and eat it because they're so hungry, and all you do is you start by saying, wait 1 second, okay, now you can have it. Wait 2 seconds, now you can have it. Wait 5 seconds, now you can have it. And that's all you're doing. You're going to shape that duration of time that he has to wait for the reinforcer. So the first day you'll hold his hand, give him a reinforcer immediately. Second day, hold his hand, wait 5 seconds, count out loud with him so he knows it's coming. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You want to make sure he's successful. So make sure you give him the reinforcer before he tantrums or whatever it is. Make it 10 seconds, make it 30, make it a minute, and so on and so forth. And that way he will gradually learn to wait. Because what happens with our kids, this is a very important thing I find with all our kids, they don't understand the concept of time. This is very true of young children as well, and just typically developing young children. And when you say wait, they don't know what that means. They don't know that means, okay, you're gonna have your reinforcer in 1 minute or 5 or 10 or tomorrow or never. And they also don't understand the difference between tomorrow and 1 minute. So when you say wait, to them it means no. You cannot have your reinforcer. And that's why they lose it, because they don't know it's imminent. They just think, okay, I can't have it, so I might as well throw a tantrum because I really want that reinforcer. I'm not gonna get it. So this is really important to always remember, that we need to kind of help our kids with some sort of visual when it requires waiting. Visuals would include a timer. So the child knows that this timer, as it's moving towards, and when there is a time, it will end. Time will come when I get my reward. An egg timer, where they can actually watch the sand. On our phones, there's a lot of different types of timers that show like a bar gradually reducing, and then a buzzer goes off, or a clock, or there's multiple visuals that help the child see that they are getting closer and closer to their reward. That is extremely helpful to kids. And then you just mentioned that in PE, he just wants to run into the children, pull out the girls' hair, hit teachers, pull their badges. To me, it sounds like he's very active or has a hard time regulating himself in PE. And so I would really suggest that you try to get him. Social stories are not going to work with this. Social stories are a very, very calm type of thing that it requires cognitive activity. To me, it sounds like he has just a lot of hyperactivity going on in PE, and he really needs a one-to-one aid for the PE period, where someone who can help control him and then teach him to self-regulate his behavior. What should happen if he had a one-to-one aid is that the minute he does anything inappropriate, he is actually removed from PE and put into an activity that is not doesn't allow him to hit people or so on and so forth. And it shouldn't be a fun activity, by the way. It should be work. It should be school activity, so that if he wants to get back into PE, he realizes that I can't hit people, I can't pull their hair, etc. And to begin with, there should be someone there the whole time that's blocking this behavior, so he doesn't even have the opportunity to do that sort of thing. And this is on the assumption that he likes PE. There's also the possibility that he hates PE and that he does these activities in order to be removed. That's why an FBA becomes very important, a functional behavior assessment, because like in that case, I would ask, what happens? What do you normally do when he pulls people's hair and hits the teachers, pulls their badges? What do you guys do with it? Because whatever it is that you're doing is what's maintaining the behavior, and you probably need to be doing the exact opposite of that. And so those are the things that help us understand. If you're more interested in figuring out the functions of behaviors, go on IBT, the Institute for Behavior Training website, and go in the teacher section and go in something that talks about doing a functional behavior assessment, a module on FBA. That's where you really learn about understanding the functions of behavior and how you can identify why a child is doing something. That'll really, really be helpful.
Okay, and I love that you talked about that it could be that he's loving Jim but doesn't know how to be appropriate and regulate himself, but it could be the opposite. As soon as I saw that there was stuff that was happening in PE, my first question is, especially this time of year, we're used to being in Southern California where outside. It's beautiful and outside, but a lot of times, because I grew up in upstate New York, and a lot of times kids are put into an old gymnasium that's all sound reflective.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right? And a lot of our kids have sensory issues.
Absolutely.
And so he may want out of that room
because
he can't handle it.
Totally right. Also very possible. Very possible.
But thank you for writing in. And check out Institute for Behavioral Training, and if she wanted to do the CIFA,
Definitely, there is an indirect functional assessment on there, and you can certainly use it for this child or any other child, and that's on skills. Under the BIT builder, I believe. BIP builder on skills, right?
Yes.
It is, yeah. I don't know if you can access it alone still. We used to allow people to just do the BIP builder.
You can purchase just the BIP builder, but if you want to look at the whole thing, you can do the 14-day free trial.
That's right.
So you would go to skillsforautism.com, and in that you could look at the BIP builder. If you decide that all you need is the BIP builder, there's lots of different ways that you can purchase the BIP builder. For schools, they can buy a package of BIP.
Oh, that's even better.
So, if you had 10 kids that you want, you could buy a package of 10.
That is perfect.
Or, whatever, they can customize it for whatever you need. Tell them Shannon sent you. Ask for the friends and family discount.
That's perfect.
Right? So, skillsforautism.com. Okay, should we take a break or do you want to go to the next question?
We can go to the next
All right. Hello, Dr. Doreen and Mrs. Shannon. This is from India. I have sent questions in the past and your advice has been extremely helpful. Thank you. My question today is, how does one explain about autism to a 9-year-old cousin? Mm-hmm. My daughter is 8 years old with PDD-NOS. Nowadays, he gets very frustrated that he cannot interact and play with her. Also that she repeatedly watches the same videos on YouTube over and over. We have told him she is slow to learn, but he cannot understand that he keeps saying she's so smart. She knows computers, etc. How can she not play with me? And are there any book recommendations that we can suggest?
God, I love this cousin. What a sweetie. Oh my God,
I know.
That's amazing.
I love that he recognizes that
she's so smart.
She is smart because she can do
all these other
certain things. Like we need more people like him in the world.
100%. And what a wonderful kid. I would actually, I don't think it's so much, you don't want to encourage him to give up. Let me put it that way. Yeah. You kind of want to just teach him how to interact with her. I mean, if you have a child who's that motivated to get your child to interact, let's enlist him. Like, let's bring him on board and teach him how to do this. So my recommendation would be, in terms of just explaining autism, I would say very simply, I would explain to him that yes, she is very smart, but she has a hard time understanding social stuff. So it would be things that involve play and so on. And he's 9 years old, so you can definitely get him engaged and involved. And actually, you should probably start having him try to teach her how to play. And so, for instance, I'm trying to think where I can guide you to go so that you can see some of the things he could do. And I think you'll probably find some great ideas, again, on IBT, Institute for Behavior Training's website, which is ibehavioraltraining.com. And there, if you look under teaching play, I think is where I would look, teaching social behavior, teaching play. It's just short videos, and you can look at them and then you can help him understand how to do those things. And then if you go on skills, there's a whole play curriculum. And if for a 9-year-old, you'll be looking at more of the advanced stuff for an 8-year-old. And it'll be cool things, like it'll be things that they're both interested in, perhaps on the computer and so on, but it'll be teaching him how to, let's say, socialize back and forth, have a conversation. That's probably, you might also want to look on skills under the social curriculum, not just the play curriculum, but under the social curriculum, you'll have a lot of things like social communication and social play and social interaction. And these are, when you read them, they'll be too complicated for a 9-year-old to understand, but you'll be able to understand the lesson, and then you'll go back and have a lot of ideas on how to engage him. So I don't think you want to like explain to him that she just can't do it. I think you want to explain to him, like, encourage him and say, I love that you want to try to teach this to her. Like, you just explain to him that people are good and bad at different things. Like, you might be good at one thing, but not so good at something else. And she's just not so good at social stuff. And so can you help teach that to her? Because it's really important for her.
Yeah. I didn't invent this. Somebody else said it to me, and I find that I use it with young kids all the time because this gets to be like the thing when we're out at, like, April is coming and we're going to be at a lot of different events. People come up to the booth and this is what they ask. And somebody had said this to me, so I now use it, that because kids get computers, the difference between a Mac and a PC.
Okay.
So you're a Mac, she's a PC.
Yes.
You both can do the job.
You
know,
do them
it's just,
differently.
but if you input PC information into a Mac, it spits it back out.
Right.
You got to
right.
learn the language.
Right.
But it absolutely can do it because he understands that she's smart and she's capable, but doesn't understand why his input isn't getting there.
It's true.
And then you can teach him which input to, and have him, say, and you can teach her your language too, but it's going to take a little bit more time.
Absolutely.
And since she asked about books, I will say that one of the books that I love is Holly Robinson Peete co-wrote a book with her daughter, Elizabeth Rose, and that's called My Brother Charlie, because
That's awesome.
she's a twin and her brother is on the spectrum, and so they wrote a children's book that's all about how they do some things
That's
differently.
amazing.
And so that's the book that I like and
That's
that
awesome.
I recommend, and
Very
you can
nice.
find it on Amazon and you can find it in most bookstores.
Very nice.
Because Holly's pretty well known.
Yes.
But what a great kid and what a great mom,
That
and
is terrific. Absolutely.
everybody's spectacular. I want to say we had this comment come in from YouTube that has me really choked up because it means the world to me. Ari has written in and says, I have Asperger's and find this community very understanding and helpful. You're all very wonderful and informative. You have all helped me deal with social problems and school. And I just want to
Honestly,
do the happy
I
dance.
love
Thank
that.
you, Ari. We love you. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to take a short break and then we're going to come back with more of your questions. So stick with us.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, welcome back. For the month of March, we're going to be making a rain stick. And what's really cool about this project is that the steps are pretty simple, so your kids are going to be able to practice a lot of their fine motor skills when making it. Another bonus is that once the rain stick is completed, you guys can use it for a bunch of different programs under cognition and executive functions, things that deals with, seeing versus hearing, or using it also for auditory memory. But we'll get to that later. First, we gotta make the rain stick. So the materials you'll be needing are a paper towel roll, tape, paper, aluminum foil, rice, and any kind of materials you want to use to decorate your rain stick with. All right, let's get to it. So the first thing you wanna do is get a piece of tin foil that's about double the length as your paper towel roll. I got this, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll it up, like so, and I'm gonna wrap my paper towel roll with it. Okay, and don't worry if it's too messy, okay? This is just to give us a basic shape. Now once I've got this, I'm gonna make it a little bit tighter, and I'm gonna roll it and stick it inside of my paper towel roll. I want to make sure that it goes all the way through the paper towel roll. And what this does, it acts like a buffer so the rice will go down slowly through the tube. And see how that's in nice and in there? Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to take a piece of paper and cover one side. And I'm going to take a piece of tape and secure it over the bottom. All right, now that I've got this on, I'm gonna take my rice and pour it in. All right, now that I got the rice in there, I'm gonna seal the other side. Now that this is constructed, don't forget to use your imagination to decorate this any way that you want. And here's my finished rain stick. Don't forget you can decorate yours however you see fit. I decided to use tape and pipe cleaners, but you could always paint it, add sparkles, just whatever you feel like doing. Now that this is done, let's take a listen to it. What does that sound like to you? I think it sounds like rain too. What does rain look like? Ah, that is what rain looks like. You can ask them a whole bunch of different questions using this after it's already been made. Well, until next time, craft on. Bye guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We have Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh here with us, and she is answering your questions in real time. I want to go to another question that came in to us online. Dear Shannon and Dr. Doreen, just want to thank you both for all the help you've given me in the caring for my 4-year-old boy with severe autism. With all the information, I decided to try the skills program. As I'm not a therapist, I just try to use any of the skills I think he could possibly be able to learn. The program is a great help. In fact, he has started to use words.
That's awesome.
Isn't that amazing? Since I started last year, he can now request for food, drinks, and some toys he likes without any prompts. He sometimes asks for potty, but mostly runs to the toilet to let you know. His eye contact has improved greatly, and he is a lot more aware of his environment. The question I would like to ask is, quite often his voice is very hard to hear, and I don't know if I can help with this. Thank you. And this is our Irish mom, one of our Irish moms that writes to us from time to time.
That's amazing. That's so awesome. I'm so happy to hear that the program is helping you, and that's fantastic. Because, you know, if you're just doing this off of skills and your child is responding well to it, and he's only 4 years old, he's pretty high potential. So I really encourage you to keep going because he's already done all these things. Yeah, so also have his hearing checked. I would have his hearing checked, because a lot of times when our volume kids, our kids who have a hard time with volume, you just want to make sure his hearing is intact. And then also it's possible that he has certain sound sensitivities, so that our kids learn to lower their volume if they themselves find certain sounds to be very harsh. So there is a way to work with it. The way that you explain loudness is that you get the child to do a physical activity, like for instance jumping on a trampoline, and then that will increase his intake and exertion of air. And as soon as you increase the air, the volume goes up. And so then you reinforce the louder volume, and therefore the child learns that what you're looking for is louder volume. And you pair it with, so what you would do is basically have the child jump on a trampoline a little bit and ask him questions, and then you would reinforce good loud, good loud. And you want to teach him loud and soft, and you want to say, I'm talking soft, as opposed to I'm talking loud. So he starts to understand what loud means. And through the trampoline activity or physical activity, he also learns how to produce loud. And then that way he will start to do that. But I see this with a lot of kids, so I wouldn't worry about it. I think it starts because our kids are sensitive to certain sounds themselves.
Okay, great advice. Moving on, this came into us last week on Women's Day, and they said Happy Women's Day to us. Is it appropriate for a 6-year-old going on 7 to start an ABA program with CARD? My son has been diagnosed with mild autism and has a very high speech delay for his age, very minimal vocabulary. His general public school does not seem to be cutting it with him, only getting 30 to 45-minute sessions with a therapist twice a week, with one being a one-on-one. I asked to bump up the amount of time or sessions per week in our last IEP, but was sadly told by the therapist that her hands are full at the moment with other, more severe children, and she would have to look into her schedule. Okay. Well, everyone take a breath.
We're both going to take a deep breath here.
Yeah.
So it would be very appropriate for you to start a program with us. We would love to have your child. We have children of all different levels at all different ages, and it is terrible that your school is only doing a couple of hours with your child, and it is more terrible that this therapist is just saying, I'm sorry, I'm busy. It isn't the therapist's responsibility, it is the school's responsibility to find you therapists who are available to provide the therapy for your child. And 1 to 2 hours has been shown to not be successful in the long run. Anything below 10 hours is usually not enough. So I would highly recommend that you do 2 things. Well, if you just contact us and we start treating your child, we will probably be using insurance funding, if possible, to get the services that your child needs. If we end up having to use school time, then we will help you also fight for funding in the school district and increase those hours. 1 to 2 hours in the public school is just kind of a joke, to be honest with you, and they should be supporting you much, much more. And yes, it's really important, and this is what happens, unfortunately, when our kids are very high functioning. They do tend to get ignored because people think they only have to deal with the children who are severe. No, the high functioning children are the ones that get more depressed and anxious as they grow up, and then behaviors occur a little bit later. So we have to take care of those children as well.
Yeah. I mean, on the legal side of this, there's so many things that they have said to you are completely illegal. I just want to empower you to know that your child is entitled here in the United States to a free, appropriate public education. And there isn't a dollar limit to that. There isn't a copay to it. Your child is just entitled to it. And if the school can't provide it, they have to pay for someone else to provide it. And they can't say, we can't afford it. And they can't say, well, and believe me, because the state of Texas just got slapped down hard for this. We covered this a couple of weeks ago, that the state of Texas had a quota of how many students got special education. And it was like 8%, which is like 10% less than the average. And the Supreme Court found that they were in violation of human rights and gave them a week to find a plan to correct it. They can't just say, well, we're only going to give it to the most severe kids. The fact of the matter is that if your child has a diagnosis, they have a legal obligation to give them a free, appropriate public education. And one of the things that I always say to people, when you go to IEP meetings, tell them that you're going to tape record, bring the tape recorder, because one of 2 things will happen. Either they won't say stupid things like this,
right?
And I'm sorry to use that word,
no,
but that's
absolutely
a stupid thing
really
for this person to say.
Absolutely.
And it's illegal. So they either won't say it, or somebody will say something stupid, and then it just streamlines everything. Because as soon as you catch somebody saying something stupid on a tape recorder, suddenly there's funding for all kinds of things. So you have to protect yourself. You have to tell them legally that, when they send you the IEP invitation, tell them I'm bringing a tape recorder, put it in writing so that they can't say that they didn't know.
Yes.
Bring the tape recorder with you, turn it on, and then the other thing that you must do is make sure that you maintain a certain decorum. Especially if the tape recorder is going, you can't yell, but you shouldn't anyway, right? And if you need to take breaks, you say, we need to take a break, right? And you step outside and go into the bathroom and scream into some toilet tissue. I know parents that have had to do that, right? You do whatever you have to do so that you can maintain composure, because there is a record of it. But if you want to know more about the legal side of it, write back to us. We are not having a live show tomorrow, but in 2 weeks we have Bonnie Yates back. And we can fill you with knowledge about the legal side of this, because it's just
yeah, it's so frustrating that this kind of thing still happens. It's pretty amazing.
It's horrifying. But they don't let them push you around. You can ask for an emergency IEP, and if you want to, bring the tape recorder to this one and say, well, I was told that she's too busy and that she has more severe kids to deal with. And if the tape recorder is worrying while you say that, and somebody who understands realizes that, they will be all over that, right? And correcting that. If they don't understand, then, it's time to go higher and say, you call the superintendent of schools and say, hi, this is what was said, and I have it on a tape recorder. Things will happen. Things will change very quickly. Okay, but email me if you want to know more. j.penrod@autism-live.com. I'm hurrying because I want to try to squeeze in a couple more questions.
Sure.
I need help just getting started to get my adult daughter diagnosed correctly and find her resources to teach her life skills and social skills too. We are in Phoenix, Arizona area and just don't know where to start.
Right, and so we are fortunately in Phoenix. We've had a center there for quite a while. And I would start by reaching out to the Card Center in Phoenix. We work with adults, children, all different ages, and we would be happy to help her figure out her life skills and social skills. We would start by assessing her. We have a really great program now for adolescents and adults, I have to say. And if you're interested in learning about it, go online and look for skills living. And you'll see it. It's pretty cool. It really goes into all sorts of adult skills, and it starts with an assessment, very much like Skills for Children. And basically, you'll answer a lot of questions about her, and then it'll help develop a whole program for her. So, and then of course we also have the individuals there, the therapists and supervisors who can help provide that. And we're very interested in helping people in Phoenix. I'm actually trying to really increase our presence in Arizona right now.
Okay. And Skills Living is fabulous. I've seen it and I just think it's remarkable. I'm going to try to squeeze in these two last questions. Hello, my twin grandchildren are 4 years old and are diagnosed with autism. My daughter is overwhelmed. There is no ABA where she lives in rural Wyoming. They are nonverbal, have poor sleep and eating habits, and are not potty trained. They have speech and OT at their preschool, but it's not enough. What would you suggest we start on first? The special education teacher at the school will help us make a plan to get their home life some structure. There's very little right now. I'm at their house every afternoon to help. They are going to start a PECS program at school. They point, whine, and lead to communicate. Thank you. I just found out about your show and love it. Loving you, right?
Yes,
Sending you,
loving
that's
that.
air hug. I know you're new, so I want to translate. That's an air hug for grandma because I tell you what, sometimes, you know, it's called circling the wagons, and sometimes a grandma can make all the difference in the world. So I'm so glad she has you.
Absolutely. And I would start with educating myself if I were you. I would start with if you and your daughter and son-in-law and others in the community, let's say other friends or neighbors or whoever you can gather who would perhaps become a support team. Like, this is where I would start, honestly.
Yep.
I would pick about maybe 5 to 10, the more the better, people who are interested in helping. And I would gather everyone around at night when the twins are asleep, and 1 hour every day, or as much as you guys can handle, maybe more on the weekends, or if someone can watch the twins while everybody's doing this. I would start on the Institute for Behavior Training website. I would go on IBT, and I would one by one go through the modules, and some of them are short, some of them are a little bit longer, but they're all generally very easy to understand. And I would just start learning all about autism and behavior management and teaching. So there's you basically want to first learn kind of what is autism and what are we looking at, and then you want to learn about what is ABA, what's the whole background of ABA, how does ABA work, applied behavior analysis. And then you want to, and that'll just be a couple of hours. And then you want to learn about sort of two things, which is teaching skills and reducing or eliminating challenging behaviors. And they go hand in hand. So for instance, if the child points to something and you don't give it to them, they will probably tantrum. The pointing to something is kind of a communication. By the way, the fact that they're pointing in itself is a really good sign. So please, see how they're whining? They're whining because they can't talk. If they could vocalize, they wouldn't whine. And if they can't vocalize, then somebody can help. So you can teach them everything non-verbally as well. But I think the best thing to do is to start educating you on these things. And if you can get a team of people together, I would make people responsible for different things. For instance, One of you can be very responsible for putting together a schedule of therapists. So what we did with a lot of families before there was funding in most of the U.S. is that they would hire local kids, or high school kids, or people in the neighborhood, or whoever wanted to help, cousins, neighbors, etc. And each person would volunteer to do, let's say, 2 hours of work a week with the twins, or 4 hours of work a week. And let me tell you, we've done this with kids, and it starts out a little bit rough because the children are not even used to sitting and learning something, much less being compliant and so on. But we start with very basic lessons like come here and sit down. And if you can, and compliance lessons really help the child calm down and realize that they're about to learn. So I would put one person in charge of putting a team together, one person in charge of making sure everyone in your whole group receives this education through IBT, and one person, maybe yourself or your daughter, whoever is able, in charge of becoming familiar with skills. And skills is where you'll get the content. So really what you're doing is you're training yourselves on the technique, and then skills is where you'll understand exactly what each child needs to be taught and in what order. Kind of like, how do I teach compliance? How do I start language? How do I start social activity, and so on and so forth. And I know it sounds really overwhelming. All of that sounds pretty overwhelming. So one of the things that we do here at CARD is we can provide you a supervisor who can A, come and visit, and B, talk to you on the phone and actually observe the twins on video and on VoIP, on FaceTime, for instance, and help you figure out how to do things and what to do. This is all possible, but really without some guidance, it'll be very hard. Like, it's just hard. And they're 4, and time is passing, and it'll become less and less. It'll become more and more difficult as they age. So the sooner you get someone involved, the better. And getting a supervisor from us is not that expensive. You don't need someone for lots and lots of hours. I don't know the insurance situation in Wyoming. I'm guessing if we're not there, it's because there is no mandate yet. If there is a mandate, hey, we'll send someone out to you and start providing services to you right away. So we kind of need to figure all that out. I'd start by maybe getting on our website, getting on the skills website, getting on the Institute for Behavior Training website, and start getting some information. And Shannon, I don't know if you have time to guide them a little bit, but it sounds like they need some help.
You can always write to me. I put that out to everybody. s.penrod@autism-live.com. You can write to me, and I can help to sort of break some of what Dr. Granpeesheh just said down. I just want to say, when, I'm sure that it feels so overwhelming, but I want you to know that other people have done it. And also, I think what a lot of people, they start to shut down, because as soon as you say hire people, people go, oh yeah, I can't do it. There's no money, I can't afford it. And I just want to say, I love, since we talked about Holly Robinson Peete already this hour, she did a blog years ago about the 8 things that everybody needs to understand about autism, and number 1 is that nobody can afford it. No one can afford it. Like, maybe Oprah is the only person who can afford it. Honestly. So, that aside, I want to let you know that there are a lot of people who have found a way to make it work. There's a lovely family that was in a very rural community, and they had one little girl. You've got twins. I know that's more, but Skills had just come out. They got their church involved and made it all happen, and nobody got paid anything. It was all volunteers. We've seen people go to their local Kiwanis club, the Knights of Columbus. We've seen sororities adopt a child and donate their time and have the sorority sisters. There are ways. So, and you might find a different way that will inspire all of us, but just know that people have done it. It is possible. And I'm certainly happy to be a touch point to help guide you along the way, because I feel for your daughter, and I feel for these little girls, and I feel for you, and they deserve to have functional communication and be able to communicate. And we know that that can happen.
Yes.
Like that can happen. It just means you got to have enough people working on enough things and knowing what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And that if those two little girls had functional communication, and that might be PECS, that might be an iconic communication system, and it might transition to speech at some point. If they had that, your daughter's life would instantly be so much better. And if there was a regimen going on and she had help and support and could rest, boy, who knows what could happen.
Absolutely.
And
and it's one of those situations, I feel so terrible right now for you because everyone is overwhelmed. But as soon as you get it under control, life changes completely.
It will be like night and day.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say you're not alone. Right. And, we're here talking to you about this, and I'm happy to talk to you more. We can even talk on the phone. And congratulations that you're doing this, and that it is infinitely doable. It really is. Okay, we've got an email. If a child goes to school which does not provide any therapies, the 40 hours ABA is necessary beside the school hours.
No, so essentially when we say 40 hours, you can't really be in school and do 40 hours. It just ends up being too many hours. That's 70 hours a week, so that's crazy. So, but realistically, depending on the child, if the child is younger, I usually pull the child out of school and do all ABA. If the child is older and has to be in school, then I try to work with the school to do some ABA in the school as well as at home and after school at the centers. So basically, it's not just 40 hours, it's like all waking hours. So as much time as the child is not occupied with something meaningful, they should be doing ABA.
Okay, and last question, because it's 11 o'clock straight up. Somebody wants to know about the BCAT. Can they do it in the United Arab Emirates? They can, can't
Yes,
they?
you can do it online.
Absolutely.
It's all online. Just contact the BICC, Behavior Intervention Certification Council. They have their own website, and it has all the information about the BCAT on there.
Okay, but you can do the BCAT through IBT.
Yes, you can take the coursework for the preparation through IBT, Institute for Behavior Training, and then you take the exam, which is administered through the Behavior Intervention Certification Council. And you can do all of that online, and yeah, you can do it anywhere.
There you go. Thank you so much for being with us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
It's always a pleasure.